Will a Black Phone 2 happen? Let's get into it.
What's your favorite scary movie? Amen.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Allow Pennywise to dance you now.
Oh, Lord on the beat!
God, don't do that.
But sometimes, death is better.
Hey everybody, what's up? KillJoy Jake here, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Today we're talking a little bit about a Black Phone 2, the possibility of this movie happening, and oh boy, it's way more possible than some of these other videos that I do, where I talk about potential sequels to really successful horror movies. Now before we get into all of this though, if you guys could like this video and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate that. So, just diving right on into this. Scott Derrickson, the director of The Black Phone, that is out now in theaters. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend checking it out, and I highly recommend checking that movie out before you watch this video, because if I'm going to talk about a sequel, I gotta spoil the film. So speaking with comicbook.com, the director of this film, Scott Derrickson, said that Joe Hill, the writer of the Black Phone short story from 20th Century Ghosts, pitched me a wonderful idea for a sequel to Black Phone. That if this movie does well, I'm gonna do it. He's got a great idea, I really liked it. Joe's very protective and personal about his material, but he came to me with the idea and I was like, that's how you do a Black Phone. That's how you do a sequel to Black Phone. That's terrific. I am like floored by this. That is just a really cool little story that like you have the author coming to this director who just must have loved the interpretation of this new movie and all that, and he was just like, oh, I got a great sequel idea. You guys got to do this if this movie does well. Now the Black Phone is actually doing pretty good for a horror movie. This past weekend it made about $23 million at the box office, which is pretty solid and actually pretty successful. So it is very likely that a Black Phone 2 will happen. But the question right now is, what are they going to do in a sequel? We have the grabber who's kind of dead right now, I think. So like what could they do in a sequel movie? Well, there is also supernatural forces at play here. So like the grabber could come back as a ghost. I mean, maybe the grabber's still alive too. It's kind of a stretch, but I mean, I think there's a lot that you could still do with this and a lot of underdeveloped themes too in this entire film. Now, I do want to make something very clear. I know a lot of people probably just watched the first like 2 minutes of my review and thought that I absolutely hated the film. I loved it. I think it's definitely one of the better horror films to come out this year. Do I have my problems with it? Of course I do. But I still really enjoyed the film and it was a lot of fun. That third act is solid. I would not change a dang thing there. But I do think that there's some underdeveloped themes. One of those things being Finney's mom, who was briefly talked about in this film and was very important in the subplot involving Gwen. Now, basically what we know about her character is that she also had dreams just like the character of Gwen's that were kind of like about ghosts, about things happening in the future and all that. It's still kind of blurry and how all that works, but we could do a whole sequel talking about her mom possibly like getting in contact with Gwen about like some other horrible force out there in the world that they have to try and stop. It could be something like that. It could be a brand new, like, some new villain, that is, not even the grabber or something along those lines. You could do something completely different. Just a whole crazy ghost story. It would be completely different in tone. I'm not sure how they would do it, but once again, I do feel like this is going to be a tough sequel to do. This is not going to be an easy one to just be like, oh yeah, we totally have an idea, grabber's still alive, yada, yada, yada. But I also want to point out another thing. They have brought Jason, Michael, Freddy, so many crazy supernatural and somewhat not so supernatural slashers back from the grave multiple times in the past in other horror movies. So if they want to take a route like that, I don't think it would be that crazy for them to do it in this. The one thing about the Black Phone though is it does have this very like real, like a realism kind of tone to it, which a lot of people, that was the big thing in the comments of my review video. A lot of people were like, oh, this was like a thriller, Jake. It wasn't like a straight up horror movie, but you also had ghosts and a whole paranormal aspect to it. It was totally a horror movie. Like what? It was much more of a horror movie than a thriller, I think, me thinks, at least. So I think if they want to take that dive a little more into the horror movie like idea instead of like a thriller that's much more based in reality, I'm okay with that. I mean, sure, to me it was much more of a horror movie, I think, and that's kind of why it felt weird when they fell into traps that thrillers usually fall into. So if they want to take that route and they want to make the grabber a little more supernatural, maybe he's back from the grave or something along those lines, I'm kind of not against it. I think that they could go that route and they can make it work as long as it's not too like cheesy. It's not too like Jason Lives. I love Jason Lives, but I just don't think those kind of principles would apply here. So if they want to do something along those lines, I'm down for it. I would actually love to see a sequel like this. I love Scott Derrickson. I love the creative team behind this movie who also put out the movie Sinister. I love Sinister so much. It's one of my favorite horror movies, and I was pretty happy with The Black Phone for the most part. So if they want to make a sequel to it, I'm all for it. I love Blumhouse too. Like the majority of what they put out too is pretty dang good. They have some stinkers, but they do have some. I'll have a lot of my favorite horror. They've made a lot of my favorite horror films too. Like, I mean, I love Insidious. The entire franchise is just so fun. I will be watching those movies until the day I die. But I really enjoyed The Black Phone. So, and if they want to keep Scott Derrickson making more horror movies, once again, not something I'm against. So what do you guys think for a Black Phone sequel? What would you like to see in that? What route do you think that they could take that would work in a sequel movie? Leave me something about it in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching this new Black Phone sequel video. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, do all of that, because we got to get this channel up to 12,000 subscribers. We're nearly there, baby. Less than like 900 some subs away or something at this point. So make sure to subscribe, like this video, yada, yada, yada. Also, if you want to support this channel even further, you can support me on Patreon or become a channel member by clicking that join button on my page. Thank you guys so much for watching again, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.